Hello again. This is the 6th of January 2025, and I'm not sure if this is naughty thoughty or not. I mean, you might glean some autistic content from it if you like, I don't know. And this is about all the hows and whys of my not watching telly for about 10 years. It's something that does seem to puzzle people. I say, oh, I don't watch telly, when my colleagues ask me if I've seen a certain programme they're into. I say, well, oh no, I don't watch telly before about 6 o'clock or something. Like they think there's some sort of caveat to I don't watch telly, but no, I don't watch telly. I mean, occasionally if I'm round at someone else's house, and the telly's on, I'll sort of sit and watch something with them. Like, on Christmas Day, I was watching Wallace and Gromit with my family because, my son was really excited to see it. I don't know where he'd heard about it from, but yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. The thing is, there wasn't actually a reason that I stopped watching. It wasn't because of any sort of challenge to myself or any kind of ideological thing, the telly's brainwashing us or anything like that. It was simply that when I moved into my first house in 2015, the aerial wasn't very good. And, I plugged the telly in and I was trying to watch all my favourite programmes, but it was just very fuzzy and very difficult to make out what was going on. And the longer it took to get it sorted, the less I missed anything. And I started thinking, I can watch all the things that I'm really interested in on iPlayer. But when I actually had to sort of remember that they'd been on and look them up, I didn't. I can't explain why. There were several programmes that I was really, really into. I was actually sort of looking up when the next series is on and clock watching. Oh, is it 9 o'clock? Oh, when's the next series of QI starting? I'd get, literally really excited about, some particular shows. And suddenly I didn't anymore. I don't know, once I actually had to change my habits and sort of do the legwork, if you like, of looking for things online after they'd happened. Once the schedules, the magazines and things, they weren't as much use. I wasn't sort of picking, yes, I'll watch this and I'll watch this and I'll watch this and that's my evening sorted. Once that was no longer a thing for me, I just wasn't bothered about watching telly anymore. And it had been, as I say, it had been a big part of my life for many years. It just been my go-to pastime in the evenings, as it is for so many people. But then suddenly it just wasn't there anymore. I suppose because I'd just moved into my first house, I had a lot of kind of decorating and gardening and things to do. And it was coming up to Christmas, and I had a new boyfriend who I'm now married to, and then I had a baby, and life just got extremely busy, and it just wasn't a priority anymore. And not being a priority, it ended up not happening. That's the best way I can explain it. So I just cancelled my TV licence and never looked back. I mean, I do still watch things on YouTube. But as I say, I get very little free time now. I mean, I've got a job, I've got 2 home-educated children, the housework doesn't do itself. Try and keep some sort of a kind of social life and keep up with my extended family and everything. There's maybe an hour or 2 in the evening that I've got to myself, and I've got other things to do. Like at the moment, I like to read and write fanfic. I like playing Minecraft. So I've been through phases of being very into things like crocheting or reading or doing puzzles and things like that. There's just no time to sit down and watch telly in an average day. One thing that we do, me and my husband, we get DVDs from the charity shop sometimes. So I get handfuls of DVDs of films and dramas and sometimes sitcoms and things, and we sit and watch them together. We know when the kids are in bed, we've got an hour or two to kill. But yeah, I do not watch live television or streaming services. I mean, it has its pros and cons, especially since, as I say, it was a big part of my life. Especially the one, I wouldn't say I miss particularly, but occasionally I'm reminded of and feel slightly poignant about the number of sort of parasocial relationships I had. All the famous people who either I really, really liked or I loved to hate. And every so often I'll see maybe a post on Facebook or an advert for a new show or something, and there'll be someone there that I recognise, and they look old. Because they were familiar to me 10 years ago, and I've not seen anything of them since. They look old. Like recently, I saw someone shared an advert on Facebook for a new show that was coming up that had David Mitchell presenting it. Now, David Mitchell was, a really big hero of mine for a long time. I watched shows I didn't even like because he was in them. And he'd grown a beard, and I thought, oh, that beard doesn't suit him. It's very aging. It makes him look about 50. No. Oh my God, he's 50. He is. If David Mitchell's 50, how old am I? Yeah, and there've been a few moments like that. Someone shared a clip of a Jimmy Carr show, one of his stand-up shows, and I didn't even recognise him at first. His face just completely changed shape. I mean, he wasn't someone who was, a particularly big fan of, but I'd see him regularly because I watched 8 out of 10 Cats and all those shows that, the comedians sort of went on a circuit on all the comedy quizzes, didn't they? And someone who was very familiar to me, but suddenly it's not sudden. That's the thing. It's not sudden, but to me it is, and it makes me feel like I've missed out on something. There's 10 years of shows I would have enjoyed that I've not seen. Brian Cox never ages though, does he? Brian Cox has always looked exactly the same. And yeah, that's the thing that I miss, really, the individual people that I used to like, that were part of my conscience. And that's the thing with a parasocial relationship. I think it's hard to define exactly what these people mean to you because you don't have a reciprocal friendship with them, but you see them regularly, and they're a part of your life but it's entirely imaginary, isn't it? How would you describe the person that, you know, the relationship you have with a famous person? I mean, if even ones that you're not particularly a fan of, but are there in the telly and you recognise and are familiar to you. The best way I can describe it is, you know, when you have a job, you go to your job every day, you've got your group of colleagues around you, and, you know, they're reasonably friendly and chatty with you, and you get to know them, and then you leave and they all go, oh, we'll always keep in touch with you, oh, we'll miss you so much, oh, you were part of the team and all this kind of thing, but then you never hear from them again. You know, it's that sort of sudden end to a relationship. In the case of famous people on the telly, sort of completely one-sided relationship, obviously, but you know, the emotional response is much the same. These were people who I used to be well aware of several years ago, and somehow they've just sort of got old without me. They've been doing things all the time that I wasn't part of. And sorry, I've got a cat down here and it looks like it's going to knock me phone over. There we go. And that's you know, that's something that I occasionally sort of feel, I suppose, slightly sad about, and then I sort of carry on scrolling and forget. But again, it's one of those things that if I was that bothered, I could always look up these shows again. When I was round at my mum's house at Christmas, she put QI on. She said, "Oh, you love QI, don't you? I'll put QI on for you." And again, I hadn't seen it. So it was episode V, and I hadn't seen it since the first episode the first series that Sandi Toksvig took over. And you know, I've just sort of missed out, you know, that whole sort of Sandi Toksvig era of QI. So that's one thing that I suppose is very faintly negative. But then it's an experience that I'm having that not everybody has. So in that way, it's not entirely bad. And of course, it hits home as well that, you know, your relationships with famous people are completely imaginary. You know, you don't get too obsessed with these people because you don't know them. I suppose that's a faintly good thing that comes of it. I suppose that there is some sort of cultural element of it that I miss out on as well. Like when I hear people talking about, you know, all the, you know, the latest pop stars and, you know, the latest film that's out and things, I don't see any adverts. I don't see any chat shows. I very rarely see any TV news even. So these things are quite alien to me. You know, you do get that background hum of popular culture all the time when you are even if you don't watch any programmes that are about pop music and celebrities and so on. There's always the adverts on, and there's always the sort of mentions of things in things that you do watch, and you know, kind of keeps you in touch with the world around you, which I often feel a bit detached from. But again, if I was that bothered, I could easily look it up. But I don't, so clearly it's not really a big deal. It's not something that bothers me when it's not immediately obvious. I think another downside to having no telly is well, it's a mixed blessing, let's say. Another mixed blessing to having no telly. Another effect that I have noticed in my family is that my children don't watch telly either. And they watch YouTube instead. Which, again, it has its pros and cons. You know, you can sort of pick and choose which programmes they can watch. You can show them things that they might not see if they were, you know, just watching children's channels all the time. Like my son, my 7-year-old, he's suddenly got very into Gordon Ramsay. I don't know where he heard of Gordon Ramsay, but he just suddenly really likes watching Gordon Ramsay shows. I mean, I don't mind him sort of hearing a bit of swearing and things, because, you know, that's human language, isn't it? I can tell him, you know, that's bad language. We can make it a discussion. You know, this sounds aggressive. This sounds rude. You know, we don't use words like that because they might upset people. You know, or you can see the effect of his outbursts on the staff. They look upset and afraid, and might make them angry as well. You know, and so on. Do you think that makes him look big and clever? You know, there's other things that only exist on YouTube as well, which, like I'm really into Foil Arms and Hog, the comedy trio. Which, if I just watched telly, I'd probably never have heard of them. But because I am looking for things on YouTube, you know, it sort of gets suggested to me. You might like these things, and then you know, I got into them that way. So there's suggested videos and things that people I knew were sharing on Facebook, and they, oh, it's these guys again. I mean, yeah, YouTube has its benefits. And as I say, my free time is very limited, so I might not sit and watch a half-hour comedy show or an hour-long documentary, but I might just watch 5 or 10 minutes of, you know, something about whatever I'm interested in. Now, I watch a lot about urban exploration, history, linguistics. I watch quite a lot about linguistics lately, actually. And so on. But yes, my children aren't watching telly like I used to. I mean, television in the history of humanity has existed only for the blink of an eye. Less than 100 years, isn't it? And I mean, when I was a child, it's not that long ago historically, we're only talking about the 1980s, 90s here. You watched telly for an hour or so when you got in from school, or on Saturday mornings they had some cartoons on. And then the rest of the time it was adults' programmes. And it existed in a corner of the living room, or if your parents had a lot of money they didn't know what to do with, they might have one in the bedroom or something. And there were 4 channels, and if you didn't want anything that was on those 4 channels, you didn't watch telly. I mean, before that there were even less channels and even less choice, but yeah, I spent many hours of my childhood just sat in front of the telly watching, you know, whatever my nan and granddad had on. You know, their soaps, their detective shows, the news, all sorts of things that I, as a sort of 4, 5, 6-year-old, didn't understand at all. But I think because, maybe, my theory is, because I was sitting watching shows that were pitched at adults, you know, I was picking up kind of grown-up communication and things about the adult world that aren't put into children's shows and people don't really discuss with children either. You know, things like relationships, romantic relationships and parenthood, and poverty and its effects, crime, well, crime beyond theft, I suppose, illness beyond runny noses. And I think it's beneficial. I don't know that it's important as such, but it's beneficial for children to learn about these things in the context of fiction before they actually have to deal with them in real life. You know, to have an awareness that these things exist and to see people responding to them. And as I say, I didn't really understand all these things when I was small, but as I got older, they were sort of familiar subjects that I wasn't afraid of, that weren't new to me. And, you know, that just concepts that you don't have in programmes aimed at little kids, like plot lines that go on for several episodes, and running jokes, and you know, sort of, what do you say, comedy concepts. And maybe because I was introduced to these things very early on through, you know, just happening to be in the room while my grandparents were, you know, watching what they wanted. Maybe it improved things like my communication skills or my understanding of how fiction works, my understanding of the adult world. But children who just sit watching cartoons and nothing else aren't going to get that at all. I've got to say, it does bother me. I mean, I don't want to be one of those really sanctimonious parents, but it does bother me when, you know, like kids in the supermarket just sit with the phones in their hands. They just sit in the trolley with the phones in their hands. And you see a lot of it. You know, this isn't just, you know, children who can't cope with a busy environment, you know, who, you know, must be distracted for the benefit of everybody. This is a common thing. And it bothers me because they're completely absorbed in this fiction. You know, it's anti-educational. You know, they could be learning about real situations and real people and how to do, you know, basic life skills like going to the shop, paying for things, choosing things, managing money, but they're not. They just sat watching cartoons. I mean, I'm quite strict with my children's viewing time. You know, they're allowed a certain amount of time. You know, maybe an hour or two a day, depending on what else we're doing. And if we're out of the house, the screens are away. And, you know, I'll look at what they've been watching as well and kind of curate their suggested videos. You know, and anything that's just stupid, I put do not suggest channel. And it does bother me as well that so many children speak with American accents as well. because that suggests that they are watching so much culturally irrelevant stuff that it's actually affecting the way they speak. And again, it's common, and it's not just a natural development in human language. It's one dialect obliterating all others for no reason other than that we as a society watch too much telly. It's one of those things that won't sort itself out, as when they go to school or they start work or anything, because everybody else will be speaking like that and doing that, and it'll be there's the just the normal way of speaking sooner or later. I feel like I had something else to say about YouTube versus telly as well. Yeah, telly nowadays as well. It's not just the scheduled programs like it was in the past. You can use a streaming service or with digital channels and things. You can just watch anything, any time of day. You can just scroll through your 1,000 channels and pick absolutely anything, and there isn't that sort of sense of anticipation. That any individual program is an event anymore. Well, as I say, when it was Christmas Day, I was at my mum's. We all wanted to watch Wallace and Gromit, and I was just sort of going around the house saying, "Oh, 5-minute warning for Wallace and Gromit. Oh yeah, it's starting." And there was something very nostalgic about that, because it's just been so long since we all stopped what we were doing and watched a programme together. And then there was that whole culture of watching the big show and then talking about it the day afterwards. Which it doesn't really happen anymore. People watch the same thing and sort of chat about it and enjoy it, but everyone's up to a different episode. Some people have spoilers. It's not really the same as that event television as it used to happen. I feel like if there ever was a time in my life that I had so much free time that I didn't know what to do with it, maybe I would, download a free, what they call them, streaming services like Netflix or whatever the equivalent is then. Or I might get the aerial repaired. I have still got the aerial in the loft and all the workings for it, just in case I ever want to start again. But I don't know that I will ever just sit channel hopping like I used to. This is another thing that I've noticed since I stopped watching telly, how much time I wasted watching things I had no interest in whatsoever. Because if something I enjoyed finished at 8:30 and the next thing wasn't on till 9 o'clock, I'd just be sort of leafing through the TV guide thinking, right, well, I suppose that's the least bad thing on, and I just sort of sit watching, Steve and Alison from Stoke-on-Trent want to open a restaurant but I haven't got a clue what they're doing. Or someone trying to sell the house or something. What did I used to watch? It was just filler. I can't even remember what half of it was. And maybe it gave me some sort of perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise on things that I wouldn't have thought to ask about. But I don't know. What was it? Wasted time? Is any knowledge ever useless? As I say, I can't even remember what these things were that I used to look at. There's one thing, when I was on study leave from when I was doing my GCSEs, I started watching this series about a group of people going on a coach trip. And it was like a long coach trip around several European countries. And, there were several couples on this coach, and I think they had to vote somebody off. It was like a sort of Big Brother type thing. And I actually got really into it. But looking back, it was just the most boring thing in the world. It was just these people on a coach trip, looking out the window, arguing about things, and deciding who they didn't like. And I actually used to sort of get excited about watching it. Ooh, the coach trip thing's on. Yay! I'll make an appointment for that. And these things become a big deal when you make them a big deal. When they're no longer of interest, they're no longer part of your plan for the day, it doesn't happen. And I remember my mum said she didn't watch telly at all. She didn't own a telly when she was with her first husband, which was in her 20s. And she's never really got back into it in the way other people were. She'll sometimes look at the guide and say, "Oh, I want to watch, the new David Attenborough programme or whatever." But then she'll switch it off. She won't just sit channel hopping like I used to. Or the thing that really annoys me though, when you go around someone's house or you're sat in a pub or something and there's a telly on. And it's in the corner of your eye and it keeps moving and you keep looking round and it's a distraction. I don't know if anyone else finds it a distraction. I don't know why they do that in pubs. If I wanted to watch the news, I wouldn't be in the pub. I mean, I know some of them have screens up for when sports matches are on and everyone goes to the pub to watch the sports match, but when it's just on all day, just on News 24 or something, why are you doing that? People sat here having their dinner, really interesting, watching the news while they're doing it. It's I don't know if that's a pet peeve of mine or if it's something that everybody finds irritating. The telly that's always on. And in our local shopping centre, they recently put up, well, I say recently, it was about 10 years ago now. They recently put up, said it again, didn't I? About 10 years ago, they put up loads and loads of screens all over the place. And it's just adverts for shops that are in the shopping centre and the opening times of the shopping centre. I just think, why? Why is all this electricity being used? They're just constantly on. Why have these been fitted? It's sort of every 50 yards or so as you're walking through the shopping centre, there's a screen just above your eye line. what's it all about? No, nobody has ever said, you know what's missing from this shopping centre? Loads and loads of TV screens showing adverts. I mean, they don't have anywhere to sit down, but there's plenty of TV screens if you really want to look at one. And you realise as well when you don't watch telly how ubiquitous it all is, and how much it affects culture and the way you think as well. I mean, I find now that I get news by reading websites, I'm less inclined to just take it at face value. You know, if I read anything that, you know, is sort of, I realise it's affecting the way I think, or it might affect the way I vote or anything like that, my instinct now is to go and triangulate it with another news source. I find the general mindset when you're just watching TV news is that, oh well, it's on the national news, it must have been fact checked, otherwise it wouldn't be allowed to be broadcast. And I think, is it though? Is it? I mean, I read so many theories about, you know, this news show has a left-wing balance, this bias, this news show has a right-wing bias, and I mean, even if they're straight down the middle centred, you know, they're still biased. They're still trying not to show every single perspective. And you know, you don't necessarily know who you are listening to. I mean, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist either. I don't want to sound like a judgy parent, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. But you really cannot guess who is writing the news, who is broadcasting the news, who is reporting the news, who is providing the news. You know, there are so many people that it's filtered through, and you don't know what their own agendas are. I mean, yeah, they might have been vetted, but by whom? And yeah, so what I'm trying to say is I used to just take the national news at face value, and now I don't necessarily automatically trust my source. I look around more. And maybe get some different perspectives. Maybe find out what other people think, and maybe find out that actually this source isn't necessarily reliable. So that's another benefit of, well, not getting news on telly, at least. Am I better off for it? I think on balance, no different really. In some ways I'm better off, in some ways I'm worse off. In some ways my children are better off, in some ways they're worse off. I mean, they're probably not missing out on things because, as I say, they do watch YouTube, and you know, I'm quite mindful of what they are watching, and I try to make sure they're seeing a variety of things that are educational. Whereas maybe if they were watching telly, I just think, oh well, they'll just watch the kids' shows and they'll be okay. I don't know. Maybe they're better off. Maybe they're worse off. Maybe swings and roundabouts. You know. I do wonder if they're having, you know, a normal life, if you like. do wonder if they're they're able to talk to other people about what they've been watching on telly. I don't know. Is that a big pro? Is that something that kids still do? I don't know. Most of their friends watch things on YouTube. They sort of sit and talk about what they've been watching on YouTube. When my son has his friends around, they all sort of look at the tablet and say, "Oh, have you seen this?" And they sort of show each other stuff online. But no, I don't know. Maybe that's just what kids do nowadays. Maybe they do just watch things online and hardly ever look at the telly. So yeah, there are some celebrities that I sort of miss a bit occasionally, but not enough to look them up. There's some shows that I miss, but not enough to watch them again. Maybe there's some things I've missed out on, but again, I'm not curious enough to look them up online or anything like that. I could do if I wanted, but as I say, I'm a busy person. I've not got that much free time to sit watching things. And loads of people have said to me, "Oh, you need to watch this, you need to watch that. Oh, how have you not seen Derry Girls? Oh, you'd love Fleabag. Oh, you need to see The Good Place." And I was like, well, when do you think I've got time to watch all these shows? I mean, I sort of have a list in my head of things that, keep getting recommended to me. That maybe one day when my kids have left home, I'll have a look at. But I don't know. Will I be any the poorer if I don't? I don't know. So yeah, that's my tellyless life. Comment me if you have any thoughts. Do you watch telly? Do you enjoy it? How do you think watching telly has changed in recent years? And I'll see you in the next one.